All right, welcome back to part two of my fluency lecture here. And I wanted to show you quickly about this Fluency and Comprehension Easy CBM. This is a really neat place for you to come and bookmark for use in the classroom later. Not only are there reading fluency passages on here for your students, but also reading comprehension. I have been told that the passages are rather long for reading comprehension, so you may or may not want to use those. Kind of depends on you. And then there are also math activities on here. So not saying that you need to use that this summer, but in your classroom anyway, when you have a future classroom, I would bookmark this and you might find yourself really loving it later on when you become a professional teacher. Okay, the next thing I want to show you is this fluency graph. This fluency graph will be used if you have students that are, let's say, second grade on up, because in DIBELS, if you look at DIBELS, you'll see that they really don't start focusing on passage reading for fluency until around second grade. Before that, from kindergarten up to the first part of second grade, they really focus more on letter naming fluency, first sound fluency, and those sorts of things. And so, again, I want you to just know that if you are tutoring younger students, kindergarten through first grade, that you probably will not use this fluency graph, okay? But if you have older students, I'm asking you to use this. It's very helpful. So what you will do is after you give that fluency assessment and you have determined where they are according to their benchmark goals, you are going to plot their reading scores on this graph. And so let's say that the student read, and I'm just going to use the fourth grade student again because that's what we used in the first little video I made. Let's say that the student read and they got 80 words correct. So, and that was the very first time that you gave them the fluency screener, the DIBELS. So you're going to plot on here with a little dot, you're going to plot 80 because that's what they read, and you'll even put the date down here, okay? And so then when you begin progress monitoring the students, you are going to develop this graph. And so the first thing we're going to do after we figure out the student read 80 words a minute correct, and so we plot that score, then we go in and we look at what their benchmark scores should be. And I believe I have it in here somewhere, maybe. Yep, here we are. Okay, so, whoop, that's not it either. So what you're going to do is come down here to the benchmark goals. And again, we're going to find fourth grade. So I'm sorry if you're getting dizzy, I'm going really fast. Here we are, fourth grade. Fourth grade benchmark at the end of the year, and we want the DORF. Remember, we want this DORF, the DIBELS Oral Reading Fluency, okay? At the end of the year, this embolded number means that they are at benchmark. So they need to be reading at least 115 words to 132 words to mean that they are at benchmark, okay? Anything below means that they're below benchmark, and anything above means that they're above benchmark, okay? It's pretty easy. So that 115, the one that's in bold print, that's the score we're interested in. And so you're going to use that score. I have two of these open. You're going to use that score then, and you're going to plot it on the far right side of this graph, okay? And because that's going to be for the end of the tutoring sessions. And so you're going to plot it somewhere over here, 115, that's the goal. What I like to do is I like to draw a line. I get a ruler and I draw a line, a straight line in red pen from the end benchmark goal where they should be and where they are now. And I draw a straight line. So you should draw a straight line in a red pen, and that's going to be your goal line. It should be a diagonal line, okay? And then as you go through your tutoring sessions, you will progress monitor, like we talked about in the first video, and you will progress monitor and you will add the students' scores each week as you go along. And hopefully you will start to see, sometimes you might see kind of a jig-jagged up and down design on this, and that's okay, because as long as we're making progress, that's what we're interested in, okay? But it's really fun for the students to plot their own scores and connect their dots and see the progress they're making. they really enjoy that, and it's also very motivating for them. So I just wanted to show this to you. I would like for you to keep one of these for each of your students if they are the appropriate age, okay? The other thing I want to bring to your attention too is, we'll look at this passage here. This is the 4th grade passage again. If you have students that have some different kinds of disabilities in the classroom, let's say you might be working with students that are either having difficulties hearing, or they might even be deaf. If you are working with students that are deaf, what you want to do is, you probably, depending upon the student, you may not, the students may not be comfortable reading out loud. And so you never want to force students to do anything that makes them feel uncomfortable with reading, okay? Because that really makes students feel bad about reading, and you don't want students to have a negative image, okay, or a negative idea about reading. And that actually goes for all students. Now, if students don't want to read aloud, which we shouldn't ever do things like popcorn reading or anything like this ever with any student. That's just terrible, terrible teaching practice. Or round robin reading. I know Dr. Walliser has talked to you about that too. We don't want to do that. But when we are working with an individual student, it's okay to ask them to read out loud, we call it a cold read, a passage they've never read before. Okay, that's okay, because we need to see where they are making progress at, and if we still need to do interventions and so on, okay? The only way we're going to know that is by listening to them read. However, if you have a student that is hard of hearing or deaf, they may not feel comfortable reading out loud, or they might not be able to read out loud. If this is the case, you can do something else where, with this particular assessment, like let's just say DIBELS, the directions tell you to give the student 1 minute, and then they are to read out loud for that 1 minute. For the student that is hard of hearing or deaf, you would not have them do that. You would actually give them a short passage. You could even give them this, whatever passage that is appropriate for their grade level, and then you would ask them to read the passage silently. And the second that they began reading silently, you would start the timer. And then you would keep track of that and wait until they were finished reading, and then you would stop the timer. And then you would document that time, that how long it took the student to read that passage. After they're finished reading, you would go back and ask them what they just read. Ask them to give you some details about what they read. That's a really good comprehension check. And it's also letting you know how long it took that child to read that passage, okay? So that would be an accommodation that you could make for this particular assessment. One other thing I might add, students that, any students actually, I would think about too, when you are asking students to read out loud, I would make sure that if they're having a hard day, like maybe they just got into a fight with their parents before they came to school, or maybe they have a really bad head cold, anything like this, you want to be really careful about this and maybe not make them do that reading assessment that day if they're, really kind of emotionally distraught. Because again, that's not going to give you very valid results, and we certainly don't want to make the students have a negative attitude about reading, okay? All right, so let's go back here. I want to make sure I'm okay with my time. I don't know where I'm at. All right, sorry about that. I accidentally hit the stop button somehow. Anyway, I am using Screencast-O-Matic to make this. It's a real handy tool, and I'm using the free version, so it's free, obviously, but I can only record for 15 minutes. So I think when I was recording, I accidentally hit the stop button when I was looking at my time. What I like about this too is that it will upload directly to YouTube, and it includes closed captioning, so that's wonderful. So I encourage you to think about using this in your future classes. All right, going back to our folder here. I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover here. Oh, Cockrum and Shanker, I want you to check this out because this chapter gives you very good information about what you should do if students make omissions, for example. If they leave words out when they're reading, what should you do about it? Maybe the student makes repetitions. Maybe they read and they continue to read the same phrase over and over again. What should you do? What if they have poor pronunciation? So again, this these chapters in here are just wonderful. So after you give the fluency screener that dibbles, I want you to come in here and look. And first of all, look at the miscues or the errors that your students are making. If they make a lot of omissions, if they leave a lot of words out or skip words, I want you to come to this chapter 12 here, decreasing omissions, and I want you to see what you should do. Okay, this is a wonderful tool here. Again, this was a suggested book for you to get. I didn't make you get it this semester, but I did include these chapters in here to help you understand the miscues or the reading errors that your students are making and what you can do to fix that. Okay, so again, this is a wonderful resource, and I highly recommend that you not only refer to this, but maybe even download it and save it to your desktop if you didn't purchase the textbook, because this is going to be very beneficial to you when you are making your lesson plans. All right. Okay, there's some other things in here I want you to take a look at. There's a fluency checklist that you can create. And you can use this if you would like to listen to your students' reading. So I gave you quite a few different resources in here. And I encourage you again to take a look at all of these different resources that I gave you, okay? I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording now. And again, if you need any help or further assistance, please let me know. I will be glad to help you, or we can even meet in Zoom meeting if you would like, for an office appointment, whatever you need. I am always here for you, so just feel free to contact me at any time. I'd be glad to help you. Again, I can't stress to you enough how important it is to keep up on all of the work in this class. I know it's quite a bit and a little bit overwhelming, but we do something called front loading, which means I give you a lot to think about at the very beginning to help prepare you on how to give these reading assessments. So it's really, really important that you watch all of the recordings that I'm giving you and read all of the material. I just can't stress that enough to you, okay? You will get as much out of this class as you put into it. So if you're doing the bare minimum, that's probably what you're going to learn. And I really want you to learn a lot. So please make sure that you're doing everything that I ask, okay? I'm looking forward to working with you the rest of the summer, and be looking for recordings like these. I will try and make sure I add some personalized lectures into the lectures that I've already, or videos that I've already found for you, okay? Again, if you need anything, just give me an email. Have a great rest of your day.